Don't drink that." The words were barely a whisper, so quiet Nathan Cross almost missed them over the clinking champagne flutes and polite laughter filling his Bel Air estate. But he heard them. And he watched, frozen, as the young Latina waitress in the simple black uniform slid his champagne glass 2 inches to the left and replaced it with an identical one from her tray. Her hand didn't shake. Her face didn't change. She just moved through the crowd like nothing had happened, vanishing into the sea of tuxedos and evening gowns. Nathan stared at the glass she'd taken. The one that had been meant for him. The one he'd been 3 seconds away from drinking during the memorial toast for his late wife. Across the room, his half-brother Richard raised his own glass, smiling that perfect, empty smile he'd perfected over 40 years of pretending to care. To Caroline, Richard announced, his voice carrying over the crowd. "The woman who taught us all what grace looked like." Everyone raised their glasses. Nathan raised his, the switched one, and his eyes found the waitress again. She was standing near the kitchen entrance, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Fear. Warning. Grief. He didn't know. But when he lifted the glass to his lips and took a sip, safe, clean, untainted, her shoulders dropped half an inch in relief. And that's when Nathan Cross realized 3 things simultaneously. 1. Someone had just tried to kill him in his own home. 2. A waitress he'd never met had just saved his life. 3. She knew exactly what she'd done. The room blurred around him, all these people, all this wealth, all this power, and none of it had stopped someone from poisoning his drink at his dead wife's memorial gala. His daughter Emma was upstairs sleeping. His brother was smiling. And a stranger in a catering uniform had just become the only person in this room he could trust. Nathan set down his glass carefully. Looked at Richard, still beaming, still playing the devoted brother. Then looked back at the waitress. She was gone. But Nathan Cross was very good at finding people. And he was about to find out why a woman who served champagne for minimum wage had just risked everything to save a billionaire she had no reason to care about. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know yet, was that this wasn't the first time she'd saved him. It was just the first time he'd noticed. You just watched a waitress switch a billionaire's champagne glass in complete silence, and save his life from a poison meant to kill him at his own wife's memorial. But you don't know who she is. You don't know how she knew the glass was poisoned. And you don't know why a stranger would risk her job, her safety, and possibly her life to protect a man she's never spoken to. Because here's the thing about people who work in the background, you don't see them. You don't notice when they're watching. You don't realize they know more about your life than you do. And sometimes, the invisible people are the only ones who see the danger coming. If you've ever been saved by someone you didn't even know was paying attention, if you've ever wondered what the people serving your dinner actually see, if you've ever dismissed someone because of their uniform and missed the extraordinary person underneath, then stay with me. Because this story is about to show you that the woman in the catering uniform wasn't just a waitress. She was someone who'd been waiting 2 years to repay a debt to a woman who'd saved her life. A woman who died before she could see what her kindness had created. A woman named Caroline Cross. Hit that subscribe button. You're about to discover why a billionaire's dead wife secretly funded a stranger's medical school education, and why that stranger just became the only thing standing between Nathan Cross and his own brother's murder plot. Now let me take you back 6 hours. To the moment Maya Reyes walked into the Bel Air estate she'd sworn she'd never enter again. And why tonight was the night everything changed. Maya Reyes had made exactly 3 promises to her dying mother. 1. Finish medical school. 2. Never forget where you came from. 3. Stay away from the Cross family. She'd broken the first promise 18 months ago when she dropped out of USC medical school during her third year, $240,000 in debt, no degree, no way to pay for her mother's hospice care and her own tuition simultaneously. She'd kept the second promise every single day, working 3 catering jobs, sending money to her younger brother in Riverside, never letting herself forget the 1-bedroom apartment in Boyle Heights where she'd grown up. And tonight, she was breaking the third promise. Because when Elite Events LA had offered her $500 for a single night's work serving at a private estate in Bel Air, Maya couldn't afford to say no. Even when she'd seen the address. Even when she'd recognized the name on the work order. Cross Residence. Charity Gala. Memorial Event. She'd known exactly whose house it was. She just hadn't expected the memories to hit her like a freight train the moment she walked through the service entrance. The kitchen. The same kitchen where her mother, Rosa Reyes, had worked as a housekeeper for 7 years. Where she'd prepared meals, organized pantries, and quietly held together the household of a tech billionaire and his kind, brilliant wife. Where Caroline Cross had found Rosa crying one afternoon after Maya's scholarship had fallen through, and had asked a question that changed everything. How much does she need? Maya had never known about the money. Not while her mother was alive. Not while Caroline was alive. She'd thought her second scholarship, the one that had covered tuition, books, and living expenses for her first 2 years of medical school, had come from USC's financial aid office. A merit award. An anonymous donor. Nothing unusual. It wasn't until after her mother died, after Maya had been going through her papers, drowning in grief and medical bills, that she'd found the letters. Printed emails. Saved in a folder labeled, Para Maya. From, Caroline Cross to, Rosa Reyes Maya's education. Rosa, I've set up the account. The payments will come through the university's general scholarship fund so Maya won't know it's from us. You were right not to tell her. She should feel like she earned this. Because she did. What I'm doing isn't charity. It's investment. Your daughter is going to save lives someday. I'm just making sure she gets the chance. Please don't thank me again. You've been family to us for 7 years. This is what family does. Caroline. Maya had read that email 17 times the night she'd found it. Sitting on the floor of her mother's empty apartment, surrounded by medical bills she'd never be able to pay, holding proof that the woman she'd never met had believed in her more than she'd believed in herself. Caroline Cross had paid for 2 years of medical school. And then she died. Pancreatic cancer. 11 months from diagnosis to funeral. By the time Maya had discovered the truth, Caroline had been gone for 14 months. There was no one to thank. No way to repay the debt. Just the knowledge that someone had seen her, really seen her, and decided she was worth saving. And now Maya was standing in that woman's kitchen, wearing a catering uniform, serving champagne at a memorial gala for the person who'd given her a future. The irony was so brutal it almost made her laugh. Almost. Hey, new girl. Maya turned. The catering manager, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane, was gesturing toward a tray of champagne flutes. Those go to the main room. VIP section. Don't make eye contact, don't linger, don't talk unless someone asks you a direct question. These people don't want to know you exist. Maya nodded, lifting the tray. She'd served at enough of these events to know the rules. Be invisible. Be efficient. Be forgettable. She walked through the swinging kitchen door and into the main hall of the Cross estate. And stopped breathing. The house was exactly as her mother had described it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Los Angeles basin. Original artwork on every wall. A grand piano in the corner that Caroline had played every Sunday morning. And photographs. Everywhere, photographs. Caroline and Nathan on their wedding day. Caroline holding a newborn baby girl. Caroline laughing at some private joke, her hand on Nathan's chest, her eyes full of life that would be gone 3 years later. Maya's throat tightened. She'd never met this woman. But she owed her everything. Champagne. A man in a tuxedo held out his hand without looking at her. Maya placed a glass in it, keeping her eyes down. Invisible. That's when she saw him. Nathan Cross. 40 years old, tall, dark-haired, with the kind of exhaustion that came from holding yourself together through grief you couldn't afford to show in public. He was standing near the windows, talking to a man who looked almost identical to him, same height, same build, but older. Softer around the edges. Smiling too wide. The brother, Maya realized. Richard Cross. She'd heard her mother mention him once or twice. The half-brother who'd never worked a day in his life. The one who'd shown up to family events just often enough to maintain his place in the will. Nathan said something Maya couldn't hear. Richard laughed, clapped him on the shoulder, and walked toward the bar. And that's when Maya's medical training kicked in. Because she watched Richard Cross pull a small vial from his pocket, glance around to make sure no one was watching, and pour something into 2 champagne glasses sitting on the bar. Then he picked up one glass, left the other, and walked back toward Nathan. Maya's heart stopped. She knew what she'd just seen. Not definitely. Not with certainty. But her instincts, 3 years of medical school, countless hours studying toxicology, pharmacology, emergency medicine, were screaming at her. That wasn't champagne flavoring. That wasn't a harmless additive. That was something that didn't belong in a drink. Richard handed one glass to Nathan. Kept the untainted one for himself. Smiled. And Maya Reyes, who'd sworn to stay away from this family, who'd promised her mother she'd never get involved, who had every reason to stay invisible, made a choice. She walked toward Nathan Cross. Directly. Deliberately. Broke every catering rule Diane had just given her. And whispered 3 words that would change everything. Don't drink that. Nathan Cross had survived hostile takeovers, patent wars, and a Senate investigation into Crossteca's data practices. But nothing had prepared him for the moment a waitress told him not to drink his champagne. He watched her switch the glasses. Watched her walk away. Watched Richard raise his glass for the memorial toast, completely unaware that his plan, whatever it was, had just been derailed by a stranger in a black uniform. Nathan's mind was racing. Who is she? How did she know? What the hell is in that glass? He finished the toast. Smiled. Played the grieving widower hosting a charity gala with grace and composure. But the moment the speeches ended, he found Diane. The waitress who just served the champagne. Dark hair, late 20s. Who is she? Diane checked her clipboard. Maya Reyes. Contract worker. First time working one of our events. Why? I need to speak with her. Sir, our staff isn't supposed to. Now. 5 minutes later, Maya Reyes was standing in Nathan Cross's private study, flanked by 2 security guards, looking like she was about to be arrested. Nathan closed the door. You switched my glass. She didn't deny it. Just nodded. Why? Maya hesitated. Then reached into her apron pocket and pulled out her phone. I need you to call the police. And I need you to have someone test the champagne glass I took from you. The one your brother gave you. Nathan's blood went cold. My brother. I saw him put something in it. At the bar. I don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't supposed to be there. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. I'm a medical school dropout. Third year. I've studied toxicology. The way he looked around before he did it. The way he handed you that specific glass. The way he kept the other one for himself. She met Nathan's eyes. I don't have proof. But I know what I saw. And I know you were about to drink poison. Nathan stared at her. This woman, this stranger, had just accused his brother of attempted murder. And every instinct Nathan had was screaming that she was right. Security, he said quietly. Retrieve the glass the waitress removed from the main hall. Handle it carefully. I want it tested immediately. One of the guards left. Nathan turned back to Maya. You said you're a medical school dropout. Yes. Why? My mother got sick. I couldn't afford both tuition and her care. I chose her. And she died 16 months ago. Nathan's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Maya looked at him for a long moment. And then she said something that made the entire room tilt. Your wife paid for my first 2 years of medical school. My mother worked here as your housekeeper. Caroline found out I'd lost my scholarship and she just fixed it. Anonymously. I didn't know until after they were both gone. Nathan felt like he'd been hit in the chest. Caroline funded your education. I came tonight because I needed the money. I swore I'd never come back here. But when I saw your brother tampering with that glass. Her voice cracked. I owed her. I owed your wife my future. The least I could do was make sure she didn't lose you too. Nathan Cross, billionaire, tech founder, man who'd built an empire on logic and data, felt tears burning behind his eyes. Caroline had done this. Of course she had. She'd seen someone who needed help and helped them. Quietly. Without credit. Because that's who she was. And now that stranger had saved his life. If I'm wrong, Maya said quietly, if that glass is clean, I'll leave. I'll never say anything about this. But if I'm right. The door opened. The security guard returned, holding a sealed evidence bag. Sir. We've contacted an independent lab. They're sending someone immediately. But. He hesitated. I took the liberty of using a field test kit we keep for executive protection. He held up a test strip. It had turned black. That's ricin, Maya whispered. Or something in the same family. It would have looked like a heart attack. Delayed symptoms. Organ failure within 36 hours. By the time anyone realized it was poison, it would have been too late. Nathan closed his eyes. His brother had tried to kill him. At Caroline's memorial. In front of their daughter. Where is Richard now? He asked, his voice deadly calm. Still in the main hall. Detain him. Quietly. I don't want a scene in front of the guests. Nathan looked at Maya. You're staying. I need you to give a statement to the police. I will. But Mr. Cross. Nathan. Nathan. She took a breath. Why would your brother do this? Nathan laughed bitterly. Because I have everything he thinks he deserves. The company. The money. The respect. He paused. And because 3 months ago, I discovered he'd been embezzling from Crossteca's charitable foundation. I told him I was removing him from the will and cutting him off financially. He has 6 months to find his own income or he's done. So he decided to kill you. Apparently. The room was silent for a moment. Then Nathan said, you saved my life tonight. You had no reason to. You could have walked away. Your wife saved mine first, Maya said simply. I was just returning the favor. Here's what breaks my heart about this moment. Maya Reyes was drowning. Buried under $240,000 in medical debt she'd never escape. Working 3 jobs to survive. Living in the shadow of a future she'd had to abandon when her mother got sick. She had every reason to stay invisible. To serve the champagne, take her $500, and go home. But the moment she saw danger, the moment she recognized that Nathan Cross was about to drink poison at his own wife's memorial, she threw away every safety she had. She broke protocol. She risked her job. She put herself between a billionaire and a killer without knowing if anyone would believe her. Because she remembered what Caroline Cross had done for her. A woman she'd never met. A woman who'd seen a struggling student and decided she was worth saving. A woman who'd given her 2 years of education and asked for nothing in return. Maya didn't save Nathan's life for gratitude. She didn't do it for reward. She did it because Caroline had taught her, without ever speaking a word to her, that when you see someone in danger, you act. Even when it costs you everything. How many of us would do the same? How many times have we seen something wrong and stayed silent because speaking up was too risky? Because we didn't want to get involved? Because it wasn't our problem? Subscribe if you've ever been saved by someone who had no reason to care. If you've ever watched someone risk everything to do what's right. If you believe that the people who owe us nothing sometimes give us everything. Because Maya Reyes didn't just save a billionaire's life tonight. She honored a dead woman's legacy. And that's worth more than any fortune. Richard Cross sat in Nathan's study with his lawyer, his face the color of old paper. The test results had come back. Ricin. Enough to kill 3 people. The police had already read him his rights. But before they took him away, Nathan had asked for 5 minutes alone. Just the 2 brothers. The way it used to be before money and resentment had poisoned everything between them. Why? Nathan asked quietly. Richard laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Why? Because you got everything, Nathan. Dad's company. The genius gene. The perfect wife. The perfect kid. The perfect fucking life. Caroline died. And you still have more than I'll ever have. Richard's voice cracked. Do you know what it's like to be your brother? To watch you build an empire while I'm still living off trust fund scraps. To know that everyone sees me as the failure. The disappointment. So you tried to kill me. I tried to survive. Richard's hands were shaking. I owe people, Nathan. Bad people. The kind who don't care that my last name is Cross. I embezzled from the foundation because I was desperate. And when you cut me off, when you told me I had 6 months to figure it out, I knew I was dead either way. He looked up, tears streaming down his face. If you died, I'd inherit everything. I could pay off my debts. I could finally stop drowning. So you poisoned me at Caroline's memorial. I thought it would look like stress. A heart attack. You've been working yourself to death since she died. Everyone would have believed it. Nathan was silent for a long moment. Then he said, you know what the worst part is? Richard waited. If you'd just told me the truth, if you'd come to me and said you were in trouble, I would have helped you. Richard stared at him. What? You're my brother. You're an idiot and a coward and you've wasted every opportunity you've ever been given. But you're still my brother. Nathan's voice was raw. I would have paid your debts. I would have gotten you help. I would have given you another chance. You cut me off. I cut off your access to money you were stealing. I didn't cut you out of my life. Nathan leaned forward. But you were so convinced I was your enemy that you never even asked. Richard's face crumpled. I'm sorry. God, Nathan, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. I know. The door opened. 2 LAPD detectives stepped in. Mr. Cross. We need to take him now. Nathan nodded. He watched them handcuff his brother. Watched Richard, 43 years old, broken and pathetic, shuffled out of the study like a common criminal. And he felt nothing. No rage. No grief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. His brother had tried to kill him. And a stranger had saved him. The stranger who was currently sitting in his kitchen, giving her statement to a detective, looking exhausted and shell-shocked and utterly out of place in a mansion she'd never wanted to enter again. Nathan walked back to the kitchen. Found Maya finishing her interview. You're free to go, the detective told her. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. Maya stood, picked up her purse, and turned to leave. Wait, Nathan said. She stopped. You said Caroline paid for 2 years of your schooling. Yes. How much do you still owe? Maya's jaw tightened. I'm not telling you that. Maya. No. Her voice was firm. Your wife helped me because she was kind. I'm not going to turn saving your life into a transaction. I don't want your money. I'm not offering charity. Yes, you are. And I don't need it. She met his eyes. What I did tonight wasn't about getting paid back. It was about honoring someone who saw me when I was invisible. That's not something you can repay with a check. She walked toward the door. And Nathan Cross, man who'd built a fortune by knowing when to push and when to wait, said something that stopped her cold. She kept a journal. Maya turned. Caroline. She wrote in it every night. After she died, I couldn't bring myself to read it for months. But when I finally did. His voice broke. She wrote about your mother. About you. About how proud she was that she could help you become a doctor. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now. There's an entry from 2 weeks before she died. She was in hospice. Barely conscious. But she wrote 4 sentences. Nathan pulled out his phone, found the photo he'd taken of the page, and read. Rosa's daughter is going to save lives. I won't be here to see it, but Nathan will. When she finishes medical school, and she will finish, I want him to know that investing in her was the best thing I ever did. After Emma and Nathan, Maya Reyes is my proudest legacy. Maya's knees buckled. Nathan caught her, guided her to a chair. You said you dropped out to take care of your mother. That you couldn't afford both. Maya nodded, unable to speak. Caroline would have hated that. She would have hated knowing that her death meant you lost your future. It wasn't her fault. I know. But it's still true. Nathan crouched in front of her. I'm not offering you charity, Maya. I'm offering you what my wife wanted you to have. A chance to finish what you started. I can't afford. Full tuition. Living expenses. Debt forgiveness for what you already owe. Not because you saved my life. Because Caroline believed you were worth it. And I trust her judgment more than anyone's. Maya was sobbing now. Why are you doing this? Because a stranger risked everything to save me tonight. And because my wife spent her last coherent thoughts making sure I knew your name. Nathan's voice was gentle. Let me finish what she started. Here's what Nathan understood that most people never do. Gratitude isn't about paying people back. It's about paying forward. Maya saved his life, not for reward, not for recognition, but because someone had once saved hers. Caroline had seen a young woman struggling and given her a future. Maya had honored that gift by protecting the man Caroline loved. It was a circle. A legacy. A chain of kindness that didn't end when Caroline died. Nathan could have written Maya a check and called it even. He could have treated her heroism like a transaction. But he understood what his wife had known, that investing in people isn't charity. It's faith. Faith that the person you help will help someone else. Faith that kindness multiplies. Faith that the invisible people are sometimes the most extraordinary. How many of us miss that? How many times do we see generosity as a one-time transaction instead of a beginning? How many times do we receive help and forget to pass it on? Subscribe if you believe that the greatest legacies aren't buildings or fortunes, they're the lives we change and the people we invest in. Because sometimes saving one person creates ripples that save hundreds. That's what Caroline Cross understood. And that's what Maya Reyes was about to prove. Richard Cross's trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. The ricin. The financial motive. The witness testimony from Maya, the security team, and a bartender who'd seen Richard tampering with the glasses. His lawyers tried everything. Diminished capacity. Temporary insanity. Coercion by the people he owed money to. None of it worked. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Fraud. 25 years in federal prison. No parole. Nathan sat in the courtroom and watched his brother, the man he'd shared a childhood with, the man who'd been his best man at his wedding, get led away in handcuffs. Emma sat beside him, 9 years old, holding his hand. "Is Uncle Richard a bad person?" she asked quietly. Nathan thought about that. "He made bad choices," he finally said. "And now he has to live with them." "Are you sad?" "Yes." "Are you angry?" "Yes." "Do you still love him?" Nathan closed his eyes. "Yes." Because that was the terrible truth. Richard had tried to kill him. Had betrayed him. Had destroyed any trust that had existed between them. And Nathan still loved him. Not the man Richard had become. But the boy he'd been. The brother who'd taught him to ride a bike. The teenager who'd covered for him when he'd snuck out to see Caroline. That person was gone. But the love remained. And it hurt more than the poison ever could have. After the trial, Nathan's lawyers approached him with a proposal. "We can sue for damages. Emotional distress. The cost of security upgrades. The foundation's missing funds. We're looking at $15 to $20 million easy." Nathan shook his head. "No lawsuit. Sir, he tried to murder you. I know what he did." Nathan's voice was flat. "But he's going to prison for 25 years. His life is over. Taking his money won't change that." "Then what do you want to do?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "The people Richard owes money to. The ones who were threatening him. Find out who they are." "Why?" "Because I want to pay them." His lawyers stared at him. "You want to pay your brother's debts? After he tried to kill you?" "I want to make sure that when he gets out of prison, if he lives that long, he doesn't walk into a death sentence." Nathan met their eyes. Richard made his choices. He'll live with the consequences. But I'm not going to let him die because I refuse to clean up his mess. That's incredibly generous. It's not generous. It's what Caroline would have done. Because Nathan had spent 2 years reading his wife's journals, studying her life, trying to understand how she'd moved through the world with such relentless grace. And he'd learned that Caroline didn't believe in revenge. She believed in second chances. Even for people who didn't deserve them. The debts totaled $4.3 million. Nathan paid them in full. Anonymously. Richard would never know. But Nathan would. And somehow, that was enough. Maya Reyes returned to USC Medical School 14 months after dropping out. Full scholarship. Debt forgiven. Living expenses covered. The Caroline Cross Memorial Fund for Medical Students. Established by Nathan. Managed by a board that included Maya's former professors and the dean of the medical school. It would fund 10 students per year. Forever. Students who'd faced impossible choices. Who'd sacrificed their education for family. Who'd proven they had the skill and the heart to become healers. Students like Maya. She finished her third year at the top of her class. Matched into emergency medicine for residency. And on the day of her white coat ceremony, the moment she officially became Dr. Maya Reyes, Nathan Cross sat in the audience beside his daughter Emma. Not because Maya had asked him to. Because Caroline would have wanted him there. After the ceremony, Maya found him in the lobby. "You came." "Of course I came." She looked at Emma, now 11, tall and serious and heartbreakingly like her mother. "You must be Emma." "I am." Emma stuck out her hand with formal politeness. "My dad says you saved his life." "He's exaggerating." "He's really not," Nathan said quietly. Maya smiled. Then she crouched down to Emma's level. "Your mom saved my life first. Did your dad tell you that?" Emma nodded. "She paid for my school. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And when I saw your dad in danger, I did what she would have done." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I miss her. I know. I miss my mom too." Maya took Emma's hand. "But I think they'd both be really proud of us right now. Don't you?" Emma nodded. And then she did something that broke Nathan's heart and healed it simultaneously. She hugged Maya. This stranger who'd saved her father. This woman her mother had helped. This living reminder that Caroline's kindness hadn't died with her. It had just changed forms. Later, after Emma had gone to get ice cream with Nathan's assistant, Maya and Nathan stood alone in the hospital courtyard. "I never thanked you," Maya said. "Not properly." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do." She turned to face him fully. "You could have just written a check. You could have treated this like a debt repaid. But you built something. A legacy. You turned what your wife did for me into something that will help hundreds of people. That's what she would have wanted. I know. But it's what you chose to do." Maya's voice was soft. "You honored her by being like her. That's the greatest gift you could have given anyone." Nathan felt tears burning behind his eyes. "She was better than me. Maybe. But you're becoming who she saw in you. That's what love does. It doesn't die when the person dies. It just transforms. Into actions. Into choices. Into the way we treat people we'll never meet." She smiled. "Your brother tried to kill you because he thought you had everything. But he was wrong. You don't have everything. You have something better." "What's that?" "You know what matters. And you're brave enough to live like it." 3 years later, Dr. Maya Reyes was working a shift in the USC Medical Center emergency room when a trauma case came in. Motorcycle accident. Critical injuries. Patient coding on arrival. The team worked for 40 minutes. They saved him. When Maya finally pulled off her gloves and checked the patient's ID, her hands started shaking. Richard Cross. DOB, March 15, 1981. He'd been released early from prison. Good behavior. Reduced sentence. And he'd nearly died on a Los Angeles freeway 3 hours after walking free. Maya stood in the hallway, staring at his chart, knowing she should hand him off to another doctor. Knowing she had every reason to walk away. But she thought about Caroline. About Nathan. About the woman who'd saved her and the man who'd honored that gift by saving others. And she walked back into the trauma bay. Richard Cross woke up 6 hours later with a doctor standing over him. A doctor whose face he didn't recognize. "You're going to be okay," Maya said quietly. "You had a grade 3 liver laceration and a punctured lung. We stabilized you. You'll need surgery in the morning, but you're going to survive." Richard blinked at her, confused. Who are you?" Maya smiled. A sad, knowing smile. "Someone your sister-in-law saved a long time ago. Someone who believes that people deserve second chances. Even when they've done terrible things." She turned to leave. "Wait," Richard croaked. "Does Nathan know I'm here?" Maya paused. "Not yet. But I'll call him. He'd want to know. He hates me." "No," Maya said softly. "He doesn't. He just wishes you'd been brave enough to ask for help before you tried to kill him." She walked out. And Richard Cross, broken, ashamed, alive because a woman he'd never met had chosen grace over grudges, lay in that hospital bed and cried. Not because he'd survived. But because he'd finally understood what he'd lost. And what Nathan had always tried to give him. A family that didn't abandon you. Even when you deserved it. 5 years later. The Caroline Cross Memorial Fund had grown beyond anyone's expectations. It now funded 50 medical students per year across 12 universities. Over 200 doctors had graduated from the program. They worked in underserved communities. In trauma centers. In rural clinics where no one else would go. They saved lives. Thousands of them. All because a billionaire's wife had seen a housekeeper's daughter and decided she mattered. Maya Reyes was now an attending physician in emergency medicine at LA County Hospital. She'd bought a house in Boyle Heights, 3 blocks from where she'd grown up. She volunteered at free clinics on weekends. And once a month, she had dinner with Nathan and Emma Cross. Not as a former patient. Not as someone who owed a debt. As family. Emma was 16 now. Already talking about medical school. Already volunteering at the same clinics Maya ran. Nathan had stepped back from day-to-day operations at Crosstech. He spent most of his time running the foundation. Vetting applicants. Reading their stories. Seeing the people everyone else overlooked. Doing what Caroline had taught him. And Richard? Richard Cross was released from prison after serving 12 years. He was 55. Broken. Sober. Working as a counselor at a halfway house in downtown LA. Helping men who'd made the same mistakes he had. Living small. Living quiet. Living with the knowledge that his brother had paid his debts and saved his life twice, once from poison, once from the people who would have killed him when he got out. Nathan saw him once a year. On Caroline's birthday. They didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. But they sat together in the cemetery where she was buried, and they remembered the woman who'd been better than both of them. The woman who taught them that love wasn't about keeping score. It was about choosing grace when destruction would be easier. Maya stood at Caroline's grave one afternoon, placing fresh flowers on the headstone. Caroline Elizabeth Cross, beloved wife, mother, friend. She saw people. "I finished my shift early today," Maya said quietly, talking to a woman she'd never met. Saved 3 lives. One of them was a kid. 12 years old. Reminds me of your Emma. She smiled. I think about you all the time. About how you didn't know me. Didn't owe me anything. But you saw my mom crying and you just fixed it. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maya's voice cracked. I don't know if I'll ever be as good as you were. But I'm trying. Every patient I save. Every student I mentor. Every time I choose kindness when anger would be easier. She touched the headstone. Thank you. For seeing me when I was invisible. For giving me a future. For teaching me that saving one person can save hundreds. She turned to leave. And found Nathan standing a few feet away, holding Emma's hand. We didn't mean to interrupt, he said softly. You're not interrupting. Maya smiled. I was just telling her about my day. Emma stepped forward, placed her own flowers on the grave. I got into USC, she said quietly. Pre-med. I'm going to be a doctor. Like Maya. Nathan's face was a mixture of pride and grief so profound he couldn't speak. Maya put her arm around Emma's shoulders. Your mom would be so proud. I know. Emma looked at the gravestone. I'm going to make her proud every day. The way you did. And Nathan Cross, billionaire, widower, man who'd lost his wife and nearly lost his life, realized something in that moment. Caroline wasn't gone. She was here. In Maya. In Emma. In every life the foundation touched. In every choice he made to honor her memory by living like she'd lived. In grace. In kindness. In seeing people. She'd be proud of all of us, he said quietly. And somewhere, in memory, in legacy, in the invisible threads that connect the people we save and the people who save us, Caroline Cross smiled. Because her life hadn't ended when her heart stopped. It had just multiplied. Into hundreds of lives. Into thousands of choices. Into a legacy that would outlast any fortune. And it had started with a simple question. How much does she need? The end. Here's what Maya's story teaches us about legacy. Caroline Cross never met Maya Reyes. Never saw her graduate. Never knew that the girl she'd helped would one day save her husband's life and become a doctor who'd save hundreds more. But she invested anyway. Not because she needed credit. Not because she wanted gratitude. But because she understood something most people miss. The most powerful thing you can do is see someone when they're invisible. Maya was a housekeeper's daughter. A struggling student. Someone the world had decided wasn't worth the investment. But Caroline saw her. Really saw her. And gave her a chance. And that one act of seeing, that one moment of believing someone was worth saving, created ripples that are still spreading 5 years later. 50 medical students per year. 12 universities. Over 200 doctors. Thousands of lives saved. All because one woman asked, how much does she need? How many of us do that? How many times do we see someone struggling and look away because it's not our problem? Because we're too busy. Because we don't think our help will matter. Subscribe if you believe that the invisible people are sometimes the most extraordinary. That investing in one person can change hundreds. That legacy isn't about buildings with your name on them, it's about the lives you touch and the people you see when everyone else looks away. Because Caroline Cross didn't just save Maya Reyes. She saved everyone Maya would go on to save. And that's what real power looks like. Not control. Not wealth. Not fame. Just seeing people. And believing they're worth it.